Hey guys, Phobos Gaming here, and today we're doing a very special video for one of my subscribers who wanted to know what he should be using for his Thief style playthrough. First up on our list are going to be the armor pieces of choice. Now, you're actually going to avoid certain ones as they're going to negatively affect your primary stats. Now, not only will the kind of armor you're wearing be important to you, but the color of the armor and the background you're in is going to be a big part of what you need to look at. Now, all in all, black is probably going to be your best armor because you can hide pretty well in the shadows in black. Even in a forest, you can hide pretty well in black. So a dark Brigantine, which I'm probably saying that last word wrong, I'm not familiar with the pronunciation, but this is considered a light armor with small steel plates that are riveted to a stiff fabric or leather lining. The armor is segmented to give the wearer greater mobility. This is about as high tier as you're going to get for armor, and in all honesty, it's really not that bad compared to plate gear. As you saw down on the right hand side of my screen, it gave me around 22 or better to everything. A rider's cuirass is actually considered not near as good, however it's also a whole lot cheaper considering the Brigantine is near 3,000 gold. So your other piece you're going to look at is going to be like the Milanese cuirass. I believe I'm saying that one right, which is actually slightly better in the slashing department as it gives you 23 armor. However, it severely restricts your movement and is considered a great deal heavier. It also gives off a massive amount of noise. Imagine trying to sneak around with tin cans tied to your shoes. It doesn't go very well. So, to sum up, Brigantine armor, and there is another type of armor that isn't sold on the trader, it's called a plated jack. It's often found on bandits that are a little more difficult to put down, but you can have these things repaired and use them, and they're actually better than the Brigantine you can buy here. However, it seems that they are a great deal cheaper. So if I ever find a merchant that sells these, I will put this in the description. Other than that, that's about all you're going to get for armor. The main deal is you want to keep your visibility, conspicuousy, which is going to change a great deal, but you're going to want to do your best, your noise, and your speed to the best possible values. Next up is going to be weapons, and these depend heavily on the attributes you have on your character. Now, if you take a look on the right hand side, you'll actually notice that this is a different set of stats than what was on my other character. That's because I recently started over. Now, the main stats are actually going to be strength, agility, and speech, or charisma. Now, speech and charisma are interchangeable. Speech is going to be a little dangerous because it goes off of your reputation that you have with said person. However, charisma, it goes over how well groomed and how well maintained you are. So the shittier you look, the worse off it's going to be. So, as for weapons, since strength and agility are both major attributes for you, it's going to be a pretty wide variety of what you can use. However, I read somewhere that they may eventually implement the weapons giving you an increased noise level. As you can see right now, by me just randomly scrolling through, none of these affect my noise level, which is rather weird. So this may just be an unimplemented mechanic. It may just be hearsay that they may never actually do. Anyway, your strength is going to apply to more than just your swords, axes, and polearms. it's going to apply to your bow, and it applies very drastically to your bow because it affects your draw speed. The weaker you are, the slower your draw speed is going to be, which can be really severe. Now, I've actually got a bow for this character, and the bow for this character has a really slow draw speed, as I have just the bare minimum strength to pull it back. That also means it's going to take more energy to keep it pulled back, which means you'll be able to pull less shots in the long run. And with a thief style character who is wearing a lighter armor than plate mail, it's going to mean you're going to take more damage in a fight once it turns into a melee. Now, as far as weapons go for melee, you have a wide variety to choose from currently, from agility to strength to that's pretty much it, actually. Agility and strength. So from here you can choose maces, swords, axes, and polearms. Now honestly, I wouldn't choose a polearm, as it doesn't seem like you can put those on your back and keep riding around. I don't know if it was just me, but I could not put down the halberd I picked up for some reason. It wouldn't let me undraw my weapon. So depending on what you're doing, you may want a bit of versatility, and if you're wanting versatility, the axe is your best go-to. Axes provide stable damage in stabbing for some reason. I'm not really sure why, but they also provide slashing and bludgeoning. Bludgeoning is great for heavy-duty armor, slashing is great for medium and light armor, and piercing is also great for heavy armor and light armor. Next up would be a mace. A mace doesn't give you a whole lot of anything. It's really straightforward, but it seems that there's the possibility to knock out your opponent with a strike to the head. So it may be a non-lethal means of winning a fight if you really don't want to get the killing done, I would say. However, for me, I just prefer to, butcher everybody in the vicinity if I'm going to go with a weapon. So I go with a sword, which gives me very high stabbing and very high slashing. However, it gives me little to no bludgeoning. Now, there are two different attributes used for swords. One is strength and one is agility, while the axes and the maces only use the strength attribute. Now, depending on the attribute, it will change what different perks you can use for this particular weapon. So we're actually going to take a look at those. Personally, I prefer the agility based ones because you will actually get to make use of the agility perks and some of the warfare perks that will decrease the detriment that some of those will cause to your damage. So first up, we're going to look here. As you can see, strength does have a few good points. For example, heavy swing. This causes your attacks to deal 20% greater damage, but it also costs you 10% more stamina. But it applies only to items that use the strength. Now that means maces, most swords, and axes all benefit from this one perk, but it's going to require more of your stamina, which means less strikes. However, this will increase your consistency in damage. Sorry, I got something in my throat. So, higher consistency means you will be able to deal more damage in a shorter period of time or a shorter period of hits per se. However, in the attribute of agility, there is another one that is similar to this called Fast Striker. It says that your attacks will demand 30% less stamina, but will also cause 20% less injury. However, this is easily reduced by some of the warfare perks you can get later. You just have to look at what you're doing. Whoops. The reason you want to be wearing lighter armor is a lot of the weapons dull when you use them to block, and shields are not always the best option. As the more encumbered you get, your speed will lower, which reduces your ability to react. So what this does is light armor increases the chance that it will be able to dodge a strike that's incoming. If you've gone through the training Captain Bernard has got for you in the main story, you'll know what I'm talking about. Otherwise, you've got something interesting to look forward to, as there's not only perfect guards that will allow you to parry something. Now, agility also affects your ability to roll dice, which is another way for a thief to make money, as you can pick up rigged dice throughout the game, often found in treasure chests. However, on the very bottom, you will see the taunt, which is a successful evasion during combat will lower your opponent's morale. Now, morale is tied directly to how the fight is going for them. If the fight's going rather well, their morale is going to be high, but it's also tied to how you look and how well you perform. Now, if you're dodging all of their strikes, it's going to rapidly reduce their morale, and they're either going to give up or flee from you. However, in, I believe it's Strength, there is a perk called Dreadful. Yep, here it is. Foes will be more likely to flee from you in combat. The ones who do fight you will be less determined. Now, this starts right away. Think of trying to fight the Hulk wielding a mace. It's kind of intimidating. Basically, that's what this does. It lowers the chance that people are going to stay and fight. Now, honestly, I'm going to prefer a fight, so I want to go the agility route. Even though I'm wearing lighter armor, I just like to have a nice sword fight rather than, scaring everybody off. However, you do want to take some perks inside of Strength, like the Clinch Master and the Stronghold, and a few other items. However, there are going to be perks like Bore that are going to be utterly useless to you. Now we're going to move on to the combat stuff. Warfare is going to become your best friend. Bloodletting increases the chance you have of drawing your opponent's blood, which means affecting bleed damage. Bleed damage applies not just to you, but to your opponents as well. Not only does this give you a dot over time, which means the more strikes you do, the worse the bleeding is going to get, and the more damage you will be doing consequently. However, it also means that certain perks are going to be more effective. When you draw an opponent's blood, you get a +1 bonus to strength when you're using the Sadist perk. Yeah, that's pretty messed up, but that's how it goes. Now, the more you draw their blood, I would think the more you would get of a bonus, which is going to further increase your strength damage, but it could also increase your damage with agility weapons, as it still is determined by how much damage you do, I do believe. I am not entirely certain. I haven't really tested it, but it's entirely possible. The other one is the less your maximum stamina, the greater injury you cause. That means the lower you have at your maximum stamina, be you tired, be you hungry, be you severely injured, that secondary gold line determines how low your maximum stamina is. So you can actually cause pretty severe damage. Think of it kind of like a berserker. The more you get hurt, the more punishment you're going to deal. Next up, you have Against All Odds, which is you'll have a 20% greater strength, agility, warfare, and defense inside a fight where you are outnumbered. Now, this affects all stats across the board, so it doesn't matter what style attribute you're running on your character. Again, I want to stress that a thief build in this game does require strength. That isn't something that you're going to do in most other RPGs. It's usually reliant on just agility. Next up, which is another really nice ability, is called Chain Strike, but you get this at level 12 Warfare. Each blow in an uninterrupted chain will hurt your opponent more than the previous one. So that means the more strikes you can deal out, the more damage you're going to deal. So this would tie directly back into the agility, where you could do more attacks and you would eventually out damage somebody who is doing a strength build, especially if you're using bloodletting, which means they're also going to be taking dot over time. And you can also take something like Rusty Edge if you want to be a real dirtbag in the fight. And this ability will give you a greater chance of poisoning your opponent when you hit them, even without a poison applied to your weapon. If you do have a poison applied to your weapon, the chances of it being administered are increased by half, which makes it a agility build, kind of a love affair for them. They can deal out some serious damage, but they probably won't kill the opponent with their initial strikes unless they already have Chain Strike. What they're probably going to kill somebody with are the nasty effects that they're putting on their blade, from bleed damage just to maybe using some kind of belladonna poison just to make it even worse on your opponent. Now, as you can see, axes, maces, and swords all have different combos. However, you can see that maces and axes share 2 or 3 of the exact same ones. Actually, all 3. However, sword has a great deal of combos, and I believe there are 4 for short swords and maybe 5 for long swords. I've never actually counted them out. However, I would say go with a sword because it provides you more combos for you to use, which would allow you to take advantage of the chain striker, as these are considered chains. However, I have actually tinkered with some of these and they're not so easy to do. It would actually take some time to get used to them. Anyway, those are things that you should really take a look at before you build your thief, and you want to kind of plot out how you want to build them before you start playing. Yeah, that's kind of a pain. Yeah, it's not entirely fun, but at the same time, it also maximizes your character's output, which will eventually make him a blast to play when he's sneaking into everybody's houses or sneaking into everybody's camps, poisoning things and just absolutely wrecking everyone. As opposed to running in with plate mail with a 2-handed sword or a 1-handed sword and shield and taking a pretty severe beating because you're outnumbered and didn't exactly strategize before the fight. Anyway, I do hope this helps the guy who asked for this, although I hope it helps everybody else too. Anyway, if you liked the video, please like, comment, and subscribe.